I still remember everything, preparing for that, getting my visa, and that coming in the mail, and all of the preparation on what life would be like in Japan. And I think, for me, I thought I could speak Japanese. I was making A's in class. And, even with all my preparation, it was once I got to Japan that reality really set in. And when I took my Japanese language course and learned, I got humbled a couple notches and realized maybe my Japanese was not as good as I thought. And so that was really a wonderful thing. I lived with the host family. And I still am close with my host family nearly 20 years later. I actually just went to see them in July, and I went to the World Expo with them. Osaka was hosting the World Expo this year. And I think that living with them, of course, changed my entire perspective. And I am so lucky I have host parents. I feel like I have many parents. I'm so lucky. My parents who are here tonight, I have Japanese host parents. And then I also have Australian host parents. I ended up getting my master's overseas with a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholarship at the University of Queensland. And, during all that time, I got to speak with a lot of students. And when I studied abroad in Australia, I think it really fascinated me because I saw a lot of Asian students who were studying abroad. And we had the discussion, like, why they chose to study abroad in Australia. And they had lots of discussions with their parents as well. And crime was a factor when they were choosing to either study abroad in the US or go to Australia. Just physical location was also a factor. It's much closer from Indonesia, really anywhere in Asia to Australia versus the US. And I think it was very eye-opening for me to hear from students who they had a choice to study abroad and what were they doing and what were those final factors. And so now in my role, I am the first Vietnamese American ever elected to the Metro Council. I live in Nashville, Tennessee now. And a huge part for me is my hope, which I always advocate for, is to help students study abroad. And so I'm a really great partner with our Sister Cities of Nashville organization. And we have 10 sister cities. And the executive director reached out to me and asked, do you know students that want to study abroad? We have opportunities for them. And I spoke at a youth summit for our Metro Action Commission, and about 500 students came. And I was telling them, who wants to study abroad? Who wants to see the world? And so many students raised their hand. And after our discussion, they came up and they talked to me, and I gave them information. And the executive director called me last week, and she said, hey, a few of the students that you recommended, they followed up, they applied, and 2 of them are going. And I think that was just really, really impactful, how one conversation, when you're speaking to a group of young people, how it can change their trajectory, and you can, breathe hope and I think opportunity for them, and then lay the groundwork. But they took that baton, and they did the follow-up. And so, that makes me really proud, and something my hope is in this, in our ever-changing world, that my experience that I had at the U of A, and of course, after that it's, my job to repay and pay it forward and share my stories with other people. And I did gloss over, I used to work for the Japanese government. So I worked at the Consulate General of Japan, and my job was to send people, U.S. citizens, to work, study, and do research in Japan. And then I shared Japanese culture with the 5-state jurisdiction that the consulate covered. And so I feel so honored to get the opportunity to really always encourage people to see the world and share opportunities that that is afforded to them. So I'll stop there, and if there's questions, I'm happy to answer later.
That's great. And before we go to Noelia, I'm going to tell you, write your questions down, because we're going to have Q&A at the end. So please write your questions down. Noelia?
Hi, everyone. My name is Noelia. I am a graduate assistant at Arkansas Tech University. I am working towards getting my master's in digital marketing, so that's really exciting. I'll be graduating in May. I first studied abroad 2 years ago in Spain. It was a short-term program. I've always wanted to study abroad, except I never made the first move to go to interest meetings and learn more about it and figure out how much it's going to cost me. I always thought it was something that was too expensive and something that I'll do eventually later on in life. But I think after taking those first steps and being like, okay, let me just go and see what it's all about, I realized that it's actually very doable and that it wasn't so impossible as I once thought. So I applied for scholarships. I received 2 scholarships that paid for my entire trip to Spain, which was something that I wasn't expecting. I applied pretty last minute for these scholarships, and so it was really exciting being able to be a recipient of those. I applied for the Gilman International Scholarship, so that really helped out a lot. And yeah, I went to Spain, and that kind of began my journey and my passion with travel. I love learning about art, culture, and history. I come from a Hispanic background, so I was able to grow up with my American and my Hispanic culture. And so I feel like I wanted to explore more other cultures. Yeah, I love my culture, see what other cultures are out there for me to explore. And so it was really interesting. And so then after that, I applied to more programs, and now I hope to travel some more on my own. So we'll see where that leads me.
Thank you, Noelia.
Thank you.
By all means, Kaleb.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Hi, my name is Kaleb Love. I'm a computer engineering senior at Mississippi State University. Last summer, during the month of July, I received the Fulbright UK Award, and I studied abroad at the University of Exeter in the United Kingdom. While abroad, the course was focused on global sustainability, but I'll kind of go back and kind of give my starting point of how I actually got there. I remember kind of back when I was in high school, I always knew that I wanted to study abroad, I wanted to travel, but I really wasn't sure how to get that. And so when I got into first day of class in college, it was kind of had like a vague idea of how to get there. You know, this new big place, a lot of people walking by you every day, big buildings. But I always remember seeing like the big, poster boards like all posted throughout the campus in different facilities, just like saying, come study abroad, go to Spain, go to Greece, go to all these different places. But like, how do you do that? And I remember I was a part of the honors college, and so they had like a kind of like an orientation type meeting for freshmen, and so we went in the meeting, and I remember my honors advisor was there with me, and he was down talking to everybody, and he was just encouraging us, hey, apply, y'all can do whatever you put your mind to, basically. And so that kind of stuck with me, but he did, mention some of the prestigious scholarships that were available, which was the UK scholarship, and so I kind of kept that in mind. And so my sophomore year came, and I was like, okay, I know for sure that this is what I wanted to do. And so I went and had a meeting with him, and he encouraged me. He walked me through the process of how to apply, where to look. And so I went onto the Fulbright UK website to see what all it entailed. And how that program works is that they have many host universities in different areas throughout the UK, and each of those universities kind of focus on a different area of study. And my university was the University of Exeter, like I said, which deals with global sustainability. So I was like, I'm a computer engineering major. Wasn't sure how, studying global sustainability would really work for me, because it kind of seemed like a branch in a total different direction from what my, previous studies, at least to that point of college, was, entailed. And so I was like, but I just knew that, that could definitely, it was related somehow. I really wasn't sure how I can get it to relate until I actually got there, but I knew this was what I wanted to do. So I applied. It was a kind of 2-step interview process. First round of interviews, went through, and I was kind of like, when they told me I made it through, I was like, okay, this is kind of, like the emotions were kind of building up. And then I remember it was early one morning, I was in my Calculus 4 class, and I saw the notification on my phone that I got accepted in, but I was kind of like, I was like, I want to just look at this afterwards. And I remember leaving the classroom and seeing that I did get accepted for the program, and it was just like a mixture of emotions. I was excited, I was nervous, like I've never been outside of the country before. What is this going to be like? What is the culture like? What do I need to bring? Just all these different thoughts. But one thing throughout the process that I was very glad and thankful for was just the multitude of advisors and people and support, not only that the Fulbright Association and organization had, but just my campus faculty and everything, just being there to support me, so all along the way. And so that was a great feeling. And so that summer in July, I went to the UK. We stayed, when we first moved there, when we first got there, we stayed in London for probably about like 3 to 4 or 5 days, and it was just, that alone was just like, if that was all I was able to see, like that was going to be worth the trip for me. Just seeing Buckingham Palace and the changing of the guard and all just the beautiful scenery. But then after those few days, we went down south, the city of Exeter, it's in the southern part of the UK, and it was probably, I think, like an hour or 2 hours or so drive down, and just the drive down there, just seeing just all the grasslands and the animals roaming. I mean, it was just such a beautiful sight. And so once I got to the university, every day we did have classes. It was basically like a new topic dealing with global sustainability, which I really did enjoy because it allowed me to see the different aspects within just a very quick period turnaround. And so throughout that, we not only just did classes, but we were able to go to different parts of the UK. Went to the beach, went to Bath, and it was just a beautiful country, and I was glad to be able to go. One of the key takeaways that I got was that the UK program, Fulbright UK program, only selects, I think, maybe about like 30 or 40 or so students out of the entire US. And so those students are then split among the different host universities. So while I was at the University of Exeter, there was, I think in total, we were 5 US Fulbright students there with us on campus. But the University of Exeter had the summer program that was included, basically like an international program, to where it was the students from all over. So students from Russia, Spain, Brazil, Chile, Hong Kong, just from everywhere. So not only was I able to just have my U.S. cohort there with me, but I was able to interact with a lot of different people. So I was going there expecting, I'm just going to get familiar with the UK culture, but lo and behold, I was able to learn so much about a lot of different places, and it was an amazing experience. And from that, even though, like I said, I was kind of skeptical kind of in a sense of okay, I'm studying computer engineering, how is this going to really relate with global sustainability? But from that, I was able, it kind of pushed me in a sense to kind of think outside of the box and figure out the different engineering approaches that I can take when I go back home as to how I can apply those principles to make engineering, in a sense, more sustainable. I understood that as an engineer, the decisions that you make don't only affect what's going on in Mississippi, Arkansas, let alone the U.S., but those decisions that you make can be taken and adapted to places all around the world. And so from that, it was just allowed me, just from the culture, the knowledge, everything that I learned there, I'm just very grateful and thankful just to have that experience, and let alone the people that I met there. It allowed me to see, not only the importance of being able to think outside of the box and to be able to shift my perspective in a sense, but it allowed me to see that I'm more than myself. There's a whole bunch of other cultures out there, a lot of people to see and to meet. And one person can help so many different people. And so it kind of drove in a deeper passion to me, just the importance of not just for me, but I try to encourage everybody to just the importance of getting to know people, understanding them, hearing their perspectives, where are they coming from, and it allows you to be able to see when it comes to making decisions, interacting with other people, how to better approach situations and things. And so those are some of the kind of key points that I took away from the experience. So.
Thank you, Kaleb. Appreciate that. Jalen, you're on.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jalen Humphreys. I'm a second-year Clinton student here, right next door, actually. So I'll just walk you briefly through my background. So I've had the opportunity to study abroad 3 times. My first time was in high school. I studied abroad in Brazil. I was blessed to travel to Recife. It's a little coastal city, Sao Paulo. And after that, in college, I studied abroad with my cohort in Ireland, and that was great. We traveled to Dublin, Galway, and just recently, this past summer, I actually had the opportunity to stay 2 months in Mexico, La Paz, Baja California to Mexico. And I won't bore you all, I guess, kind of with the details of the day-to-day that I did, but just kind of listening to my co-panelists and their awe-inspiring stories, it really kind of makes me think about my own experiences and the current context that we're in globally, politically, economically, and things of that nature. And I was fortunate enough to, in my experience, travel during relatively calm times. So I didn't really have to be aware of how I guess, carry myself as an American. I was blessed with the ability to just go and be myself, be who I was. And when we kind of think about this conversation, this topic of where study abroad has been and where study abroad is going, I think it's really important for all of us to instill within ourselves and the next generation, for all of those that have the desire to, whether study abroad or connect with others across the world. These are changing and troubling times, as Dr. Hare and as Judge Baldwin mentioned, and it's really important. It's of the utmost importance that we instill within ourselves and the upcoming generation how to be representatives of themselves, their best values, and the best values of, what honestly kind of makes this nation unique, what makes it this, mixing pot, like a gumbo, like the reference we say. So I really just kind of want to impart that and leave that to everyone, that we really need to practice, promote, and develop a culture of intentionality and integrity. And one thing that I've been kind of thinking to myself, is if you want to have a healthy plant grow, if we want to view our students, our children as seedlings, we need to have a healthy soil for them to develop in. And it's up to all of us to kind of develop that healthy soil.
As you can tell from listening to the panel, international education is addictive, and there's no 12-step program. I can tell you, because I did my Fulbright in 1994, and I have not stopped since. I've now been to 70 countries. And the wonderful thing about international education is that you're not too young, and you're not too old. And my husband and I are actually thinking about doing some kind of a specialist program when everything settles down. So the fact is that you can still go. There are teachers programs. There are all kinds of programs that you can travel, that you learn the culture, and it really is important. I grew up in a small town outside of Pittsburgh, a steel town. And I told this story earlier that when I was a little girl, about 6 years old, my mother went on one of those bus church trips, and they were going to Niagara Falls. And my father and I walked her to the bus, and I don't know what came over me. I started to cry and bawl. I embarrassed my parents. I want to go to Niagara Falls. I want to go to Niagara Falls. I carried on so badly that the women on the bus offered to pay for me to go to Niagara Falls. My father was hearing none of it, and I went back home. But now, I have been to Victoria Falls on the Zambezi River. I have been to Argentina in the Iguazu Falls. So the fact is that while you may not think you'll get far, like I did at age 6, once you start, didn't I say it was addictive? You will keep going. So that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about the future of this in a changing world. And I wanted to have a very bright future. So if you have questions now for the panel, this is the time. I see one here.
Yeah, my question is, you've all had
Would you repeat the question that you're going to answer so everybody?
Yes, the question was, what if you have a young person who's on the fence, they're interested in going to studying abroad, but they're not sure, what advice would we share with them? Gosh, I guess I'll start. For me, I definitely would, share my experience. And I think another thing too, without knowing who the student is, but I think it's always like asking what their interests is, what they care about, what they want to see, and to remind them that they have a community, that they have support, and that other people have gone before them. And I can, of course, share these amazing stories, with them from students who are doing it today, not someone who's done it a long time ago. And so I think that's something that's really important. And I do think, like, with social media these days, finding that TikTok video or finding that social media post that shows that connection for them would be something I would probably share.
Anybody else want to answer that question? Jalen.
Yeah, I think that was a great question. Noelia, I don't know if you remember, but earlier today at the Youth Summit, she said something to the high school students that kind of really stuck with me, something that I've been trying to drill in my head. She said there's never a perfect time to get started. You just have to start. And I think that is very philosophically sound, and it can apply to many, many different things. But in the context of high school students studying abroad, I really do think that it's important that, again, not just the study abroad guru or mentor that they're going to for advice. Every one of us, that has the opportunity to connect with them, it's incumbent upon us to really build that confidence in them and let them know, trust your gut. If this is something that you want to do it. Because oftentimes, I think it's, in my personal experience, it's better to try something and know, hey, I don't want to do that again. I'm glad I tried it because now I know, versus not knowing at all and always kind of living with that, what if, For me, that just eats me up. So I would kind of impart my own experience on them, and hopefully that'll open some doors for them.
Other questions? Yes, question over here.
Good evening. I and my colleague here, we coordinate study abroad at UAPB, among other things. We're a small school, so we do international students, everything. So my question is, given the global dynamics at work, do you find yourselves thinking, one, maybe I won't go to that country or that region? Or do you find yourself thinking, well, I think I want to go to that country, but how I get there, maybe, do I want to do a layover here versus there? Do you find yourselves having those kinds of thoughts?
So for me, there's so many places to go and to explore. It's kind of hard to come to a decision, okay, where do I want to go? And a lot of the times that decision is just made because of the timing. Okay, this flight is a better deal, or this program happens to fall during the timing that I am available right after graduation. And I find that it turns out to be a great trip. So yeah, it's for sure, it's a challenge for me.
I know for me personally, especially with like the whole how things are going internationally, I wouldn't say I haven't been like afraid in a sense or kind of doubtful as to where to go. If anything, it's kind of pushed me to go even more, because it's kind of shown me the even more importance of being able to go out there and to get to know people. I feel as if that a lot of the issues that are kind of going on and present in the world today wouldn't be the way they are if people just sat down and actually talked to people. And so to do that, you actually have to go and talk. And so if anything, it would push me to want to go even further. So it's kind of really haven't ran in my mind, but I can definitely understand that's a genuine concern that people can have. But I'll just encourage you, whoever it may be, just to always just keep that overall main goal insightful when you're going out there and doing whatever you do, because we all have a supply to provide the world, in whichever facet it may be in, and so it'll be great.
One thing I've actually had to face recently is we've had delegations come to the U.S. So this just happened a few weeks ago. We had a group of German students who are from Magdeburg, and they kept asking, is it going to be safe for us to come? And I think sometimes that's really hard to hear, that like, you know, you have this exchange and you're working on bilateral relations, and the young people are asking if they're going to be safe in your country, in your city. And, you know, I will tell you, it's like all of us leaders, the vice mayor, me as a council member, the executive, kept telling them, yes, like you will be safe. Like we are with you. We'll be with you this whole trip. And I think sometimes, you know, I think that's been something very new. I have not had to convince people or tell people, like being from Nashville, everyone's always like, I love Nashville. And I think to hear that from students and young people, it really did hurt me, because it made me think, this is what we are portraying abroad to people. That is what people are seeing and feeling. And so that's why for me, I've been really trying to focus, how do we keep having discussions and keep strengthening like our relationships that we currently have or have had, to ensure that we continue to have allies, ambassadors, you know, overseas, because we can't be there, you know, in our country. So those are some things I've experienced welcoming delegations. Myself, I have been traveling to Japan on a leadership program back and forth for the past couple of years, and I haven't had like any issues. I know people have been concerned. We've had lots of discussions with my friends about like coming back when we go through customs, but fortunately I haven't had any issues. But I know, you know, that there are lots, I think, of more just worries than ever before.
We have to remember, though, while there is geopolitical instability now, and we are feeling a little shaky here in the U.S., there was always some geopolitical instability. I actually did my Fulbright in Zimbabwe when Mugabe was the dictator. And it was an interesting thing, because my wonderful husband had bought me the radio, you know, so I could hear news from outside and stay up. And I was very happy about that. And so I was on the faculty at the University of Zimbabwe, the law faculty. And I mentioned one day that I had heard this wonderful program on BBC. And they said, you know, you're not allowed to have that. And I said, oh, because Mugabe really did not want people to hear what was going on in the outside world. And when I was there, because I was a sitting judge, I had the opportunity to work with the Zimbabwean Supreme Court, and they were working on land redistribution cases. Remember what happened? Mugabe was taking the land and, okay, without due process. Everybody's shaking their head, so I won't go deeply into the law here. So I was able to do the research for the Supreme Court. They wrote a beautiful opinion against Mugabe, and then Mugabe got rid of the whole Supreme Court. So there has always been geopolitical instability, and I think that more than ever, when we talk about the future of international education, more than ever it's needed, more than ever. Next question.
Hi, my name is Lauren. So my question for you all is, why was it so important for you all as Black, Indigenous people of color to study abroad?
Jalen.
I think that's a good question. In my experience, so luckily I've never ran into any racism or prejudice that I can, readily identify. Microaggressions maybe, but that's not really the bulk of the question. For me, I think it was important to kind of serve as a positive and authentic representation of I guess, what my culture, what my race, represents and brings to the table. Because, we're living in the age of social media, and so it's so easy to kind of see stigmatized and misinformation online. And in my personal experience, I quite literally can tell you multiple stories of conversations, one-on-ones that I've had in Ireland, in Mexico, and in Brazil, all 3 places that I've studied abroad, in which people were kind of like, not to put it so bluntly, but like, wow, I didn't know black people were so cool, so intelligent. So, and I didn't feel like it came from a place of hate. It came from a place of curiosity, because being there and really being able to be representative for Memphis, Tennessee, for black culture, it's a badge of honor for me, knowing that, I represent, I guess, authenticity. So I think it's just really important for me being able to share my knowledge, my culture, my experience with people that might never have had the opportunity to come to the United States and experience Black indigenous culture themselves because of lack of resources or whatever it may be. So for me, it honestly just kind of meant a lot.
Anybody else want to address that question?
Yeah, so for me, my family believes in you save money, you buy a house. You save money, you buy a car. You save money, you save it just in case for emergencies. Nobody has ever traveled in my family. It's not something that they value. It's not something that they even think about or dream about. It's just like how they grew up. It wasn't really an interest that they discovered. So for me, it was important to travel as a person with a different cultural background because I wanted to break that cycle. I want to inspire other people. I want them to see, me traveling and be like, oh, maybe I can do it. Maybe, oh, you know what? That's something I could do, and just break those norms.
Yeah, and for me, my parents had to cross the waters, not on their own accord. And I think that, seeing that and seeing their sacrifice and everything they had to, it's like, what is it like when you get the choice to see the world and you can explore a place, not because you were forced to leave your own homeland. And then once I went abroad, oftentimes I was the first Arkansan anyone had ever met. Like every time I was like, I'm from Arkansas. They're like, no, you're not. And I'm like, why would I lie? Like, I'm pretty sure I know where I'm from. But it made me, honestly, I felt when I finished studying abroad, like more proud to be from Arkansas, more proud to be, from the U.S. Because I was able to really break down barriers, right? And really have conversations with people. And my hope is that Arkansas was never on the radar for them, but it is now. And that's something I'm so proud of, that lots of people know about Arkansas, and not just Bill Clinton, even though we're in the foundation. And I think that's our role, like in each of us, we bring experiences and things that we love about our own, like places that we live. And, for me, when I studied in Japan, it's very easy for me to blend in. Just culturally, without speaking, but it was really important to help people understand that, the U.S. is very diverse, because they're like, wait, you're from the U.S.? And I think these conversations you aren't able to have unless you really do stretch and go out of, your comfort zones or just expand yourself.
I came before DEI. In fact, I was during segregation. And we have to realize first there's a difference between racism and curiosity. Because the first time I went to China, people had not seen a Black woman. And I would walk down the street, and actual story, a woman walked up to me and she did this to my face, and I'm going like, it doesn't come off. But she was curious. She had, no preconceived notions about me, except she had never seen a me before. And so sometimes we have to be very careful that we don't carry our preconceived notions into another society, in another culture. And it's at times it's very difficult. And I can tell you, when I went to Zimbabwe, it's a male-dominated society. So that was a whole different ball game. And I was so excited to be there because I was going home to the motherland. Every time I walked down the streets, people would stop me and say, "You're an American." And I thought, I'd fit right in. Nope, I did not fit right in because I have a cultural difference. And so we have to be very careful about our preconceived notions, too. Other questions? I see one over here with Lawrence.
Microphone's coming. Thank you. So I have a question. The first time I led a study abroad program, it was to Vienna, and I took 14 students, and 13 of them were female, and 1 was male. And I've seen that pattern repeat over and over, where we send tons of females abroad, lots and lots of females, but we're having a hard time convincing young men to see the value of study abroad. And so since you're here, I'd like to ask, how can we convince more young men to join you and take these international experiences?
Great question. Who wants to tackle it first?
I'll go. I'll kind of approach my answer to this is how similar to like the high school question, how I would generally approach anyone, because I believe at least the approach that I'm imagining could be applicable to you regardless of your walk of life or whoever you are. But I think one of the key things is kind of finding your passion for things and encouraging people to dream. Some people may not be dreaming, or may have a closed mind and have a limited view of their impact that they can provide, not just only to their community, but let alone on an international scale. So I believe that, regardless of who you are, if you can get that person and sit down and talk with them, like what gets you excited? What do you want to do with your life? And then get them to then pivot from that to see, how can this be taken internationally? And I believe that once you can make that connection with something, when you're passionate about something and you have a dream, that's something that's hopefully ingrained in you. And so when you can help them draw that connection between something a lot bigger than themselves into international, I believe that'll be like a great segue to get them in. For me, I was an engineering student, and I was, when it comes to going abroad, I was like, okay, one of my main things was like, I really want to learn new cultures. I want to learn as much about people as I can, how different societies and things work. Because I knew, like I said, that the decisions that I make as an engineer won't just impact what's in Mississippi, what's in the U.S., but it can go along and impact people abroad. But what that started was my passion about engineering and those principles. And I was then able to take that to apply to different places. So whatever, that person's interests, major, desires, whatever it can be, there's always a connection. And like I said, we all have a supply and things to provide. And so just basically taking out the time to work with them and to get them to dream, explore, and just have a passion within. I think they'll be great.
Anybody else want to address that?
Yeah, I can add a little bit more. I think that's a great question, Dr. Hare. And this really just kind of echoes Kaleb's point, but I think the takeaway is really speak their language, I can think from my experience, what really caught me about the study abroad world was I always loved learning. I loved learning growing up. I was always reading, and when I got the opportunity, to study abroad and learn about some of the things I might have read, it kind of seemed like a no-brainer. But, imagine you have someone that's growing up in, rural Arkansas, rural Tennessee, and, all that matters to them is, their farm, their family legacy. So it's kind of, how do you convince someone that really only cares about their hometown, what's right in front of them, to go and leave that behind and learn something new? And I really do think that it kind of comes down to kind of what Kaleb said, meeting them where they are, speaking that language. And I think, again, kind of going back to my point about developing that soil that's conducive for growth, I think we really need to be intentional about developing a culture in which people, especially young men, are comfortable with engaging in some type of self-reflection and kind of breaking down some of those preconceived notions of what they should be or what they should do or what they shouldn't do, as a man. Because, we, all being from America or having lived in America for a sufficient amount of time, we kind of know that the pressure that gender norms can weigh on, certain individuals in this country. So I think it's important that we develop confidence in making these, young students and even, older people that might be interested in studying abroad, knowing that they can break those barriers down, those mental stigmas down, because they have support, around them.
Any more ideas?
Yeah, and I just want to add, for me, I didn't know that, and I would just name it. And I think that on campus, make it an initiative, and do a survey and just get feedback from your students. They're going to tell you, I think, if, working together on framing the questions and why, what would take them to study abroad? Why are they interested in it? Do they even know about opportunities? And I think that oftentimes we guess at what we think, X group wants, versus I always tell people on projects, I'm like, if the people that we are trying to solve an issue for are not at the table, we're not solving the problem. And, and I think that's, for me, so important because my nephew is at the U of A. He's a freshman and he's in engineering. And it was so funny because I'd mentioned it and they're like, but is there opportunities for engineering students to study abroad? And so I think it's so interesting that the first thing was not that, yeah, I would like to, but no, there's no opportunity for me. And so that means that there are already negative, or obstacles versus opportunity. And so, that would be my advice. It's make it important, make it an initiative, on the campus, and ask the students. They'll tell you.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, right here.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for a very interesting discussion. My name is Vladimir. I'm from Armenia, and I'm with the Professional Fellows Program. I'm curious, how did you combine traveling abroad with your personal and professional life? Did you have any obstacles with those aspects?
Who wants to tackle that one first?
Yeah, I'll go. So for me, it helped me professionally because I was able to gain a lot of skills. What big one was becoming more open-minded and just becoming more of a social person. I want to meet new people now because I have had so many positive experiences with meeting people abroad. I want to get connected with people, and I think that's a very big value. Being creative too, thinking outside of the box. Being able to see different perspectives allows you to be more of a global thinker. And personally, I've had so much joy in my life. I genuinely enjoy continuing to learn about culture outside of traveling, just on my own, reading books, watching people's experience stories, even social media. It's a lot more expansive now. Instead of just watching American people, I try to watch people from all over the world just because I'm genuinely curious and it brings joy to me.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Jalen.
Y'all might be tired of me. I'm sorry. I have a lot to say. Again, I think that's a great question. Y'all are asking great questions. For me, I can't really say that I was intentional when I was in high school and mid-career college about combining or utilizing elements from my study abroad trip to enhance my personal life and my professional life. But I think this is the most recent time when I traveled to Mexico, I tried to be intentional about at least not minimizing my personal life that I kind of put on pause in the States. And also utilizing the study abroad opportunity to not only, develop skills, broaden my worldview, but really learn and just explore. Because it's every time I go study abroad, I learn about some new career, or I get some new idea about how to connect people internationally and some business idea I have. It's like a gift and a curse because it's I can't keep growing this vision much bigger and bigger and bigger. So for me, I think that it has just allowed me, studying abroad has allowed me the opportunity to just connect multiple dots. And I think in this age, it's that skill of interdisciplinary thinking is again, critical to solving some of these complex problems we have. So I don't even know if that answered your question, but that's just kind of the thoughts that came to mind.
I'll say something really quick. You know, because of my major, we were required, right, to study a foreign language. And I'll be honest, my friend and I, we both wanted to study Vietnamese, but the list of languages available at the U of A did not include Vietnamese. So then we started looking at the list, and we were like, we were curious, and, you know, we were interested in Japan. So we were like, let's take Japanese. And like that decision, like that day, changed the trajectory of my life. Like, and so, you know, and my friends too. Like, we both ended up studying abroad at various programs, and then we both got on the JET program. He was going to medical school, so then he went and finished 1 year and went back to become a doctor. And so, you know, but for me, studying Japanese, like, gave me the opportunity to then study in Japan and really form deep relationships with Japanese people, not only my family. And you see a massive through line. I got to work for the Japanese government, and then when I came back to Nashville, you know, I've gotten to blend, of course, personal and professional. When I worked at the consulate, I got to help start the Nashville Cherry Blossom Festival that welcomes over 60,000 people annually now, and it's a free festival for anyone. It's a very regional festival. And then the Consul General, the first one, he wanted to plant 1,000 cherry trees over a 10-year period, and guess what? We did it. And this is the personal thing. So he found out that I sing and play violin, and I did not know this when I was hired. So when they would have dinners and business execs come to the residence, after dinner, post-dinner would be performances. And his band was called Beauty and the Beast, plural, because it was a violinist who was like the local staff, and then 2 Japanese diplomats. Well, one of the Japanese diplomats had to finish, and he finished his tour in Nashville and had to go back to Japan. So then there was an opening, and then they're like, Terry, you're in the band now. And I'm like, I am? Okay. And so then when he renamed the band Beauties, plural, and the Beast. And, you know, with that, I never thought like me, you know, growing up playing violin, singing in the church, like would then form this band that I play at the consulate. And, you know, that parlayed into getting to perform on the Grand Ole Opry. And so I think like all these skills and all these things that you have growing up and opportunities, you just never know where they'll take you. And I think when they come, like, you gotta be ready for them. And so, yeah, like, I think that that one decision changed my life.
That's kind of where there's a will, there's a way. Because I was married with 2 children when I did my Fulbright. I had one in law school and one in college, and a husband, and I was on the bench. We didn't get a sabbatical. So I had to figure out how to do this once I applied and got it. And actually, they let me, the Supreme Court on which I later sat, let me compound my vacation, but I had to be back on a date certain to start the trial list. And so I actually did a summer one. So there are all kinds of programs, all different lengths of time. So, you know, once you're interested, don't let that stop you. You can do it. The first thing I want to do is I want to applaud this panel for the wonderful. And I just want to close by a couple of quotes that I think are really apropos. One is from J.W. Fulbright, and he said, educational exchange can turn nations into people, contributing as no other form of communication can, into the humanizing of international relations. Man's capacity for decent behavior seems to vary directly with his perception of others as individual humans, with human motives and feelings, whereas his capacity for barbarism seems related to his perception as an adversary in abstract terms as the embodiment, that is, of some evil design or ideology. So we need to humanize international education. And the last one is from Mahatma Gandhi, whose birthday was celebrated on October 2nd. It's International Day of Nonviolence. And he said, "There are 7 things that will destroy us: wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, religion without sacrifice, politics without principle, science without humanity, and business without ethics." That is why we need international education programs. And so I look forward to all of you either being global citizens or continuing to be global citizens. And now I'm going to call on the woman who has done such a fantastic job of putting this all together, because I think she has a little invitation for us all. Good, good. I'm going to move right out of the way.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dee Dee Long, Emeritus Director of Study Abroad and International Exchange at the University of Arkansas. But more importantly, for here, I'm a member of the Board of Directors for the Fulbright Association, for the Arkansas chapter of the Fulbright Association, which sponsored this event. So I'm just really glad to see you. We have just the right amount of people here where I can extend an open invitation. As you may have heard, we had a youth summit today that was absolutely amazing, and we brought in 50-plus students and teachers, plus teachers, from three schools, and we spent more than half a day talking about study abroad. The students were able to listen to amazing stories from our speakers. They were engaged with the interaction of the Clinton students. We had a UAMS ETA Fulbright alum with us too. So it was just an incredible day. And I think I always felt that we needed to celebrate the work that's been put into this day. And so I said, can we borrow 42 Restaurant? And they said, the Clinton Foundation was nice enough to say yes. So we have some libation and lots of food, or at least lots of heavy snacks. And if any of you can stay, and I hope you will, if you want to join us down at the lower level, we'd love to have you engage and interact with our guests. So that would be lovely, and we'll see you there, I hope. And thank you very much.
That deserves applause.
Yeah. So thank you all for being here.